Welcome to the Real Estate Niche Show, a show that focuses on top real estate professionals who specialize in different niches of real estate. My name is Ben Kogut. Join me as we dive deep into the professional and personal lives of the experts of the real estate industry. Welcome to the Real Estate Niche Show. I am your host, Ben Kogut, and today I have a very special guest. August Biniaz is a real estate developer with a passion for sharing his knowledge and helping others reach financial freedom. He's the co-founder of CPI Capital, where he enables partners to earn substantial returns by investing in multifamily properties in the hottest U.S. markets. He educates his investor partners about apartment syndication investing through CPI Academy platform, through webinars, as well as meetup groups and one-on-one coaching. August brings to CPI a breadth of experience and knowledge with over 15 years in the real estate business and investing. August, welcome to the show. Is there anything I missed in your bio?
No, not at all. Thanks for having me, Ben.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into it. Maybe share a little bit with my audience about what your real estate niche is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Our niche is multifamily value add. Gets a bit more focused because we're in a multifamily value add space, utilizing private equity, the syndication model to bring on passive investors to acquire the properties we acquire. And we happen to be here in Canada, and we buy properties in the US, so it makes it even more specialized, where we partner with Canadian LPs to acquire US multifamily assets.
Nice. That's definitely a way that you get to differentiate yourself as a Canadian. And so I'd like to explore that a little bit further about what are the rules or regulations that maybe apply a little bit differently to you as a Canadian doing business in the US and vice versa.
Yeah, definitely. Being a Canadian firm that partners with Canadian investors, raises Canadian equity to acquire US real estate, we do also raise U.S. equity as well. And in some cases, we partner with U.S. operators. So they are also raising equity on the deals as well. So we have to comply for both the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission and also for Canadian securities commissions, which are handled by each province has their own securities commission. So we're overseen by multiple securities commissions, and we have to adhere to multiple rules that govern us.
Is there anything in particular that maybe the U.S. Investors don't have to that you do?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're raising the security compliance is somewhat similar in Canada and the U.S., but it also has some major differences. So in the U.S., primarily the two main ways that operators raise capital, sponsors raise capital for deals are 506C, which allows you to raise from accredited investors, and then 506B, which allows you to raise from non-accredited investors, but has some restrictions with advertising. Here in Canada, we depending on what province you're raising capital, there's a set of exemptions you could use to raise capital. So there's the accredited investor exemption. There is the offering memorandum exemption, which is similar to the 506C offering, but allows you to also raise from non-accredited investors, 150,000 minimum investment exemption, the crowdfunding exemption, family and friends exemption. So there's a bunch of different exemptions you could utilize to raise equity for the deals.
Nice. Okay, that's news to me, which is why I wanted to ask. Let's talk a little bit more about the way that you've been able to differentiate yourself with your investing. And, I've seen a lot of your content, for lack of a better word, social media and educational. And so maybe, would you mind sharing a little bit about how, what is your strategy with all that, and how does that tie in with your investing?
For sure. I got to give you a quick backstory. So my background was in construction development locally here in Vancouver, BC, where I was syndicating deals before even knowing what syndicating meant. That was on the single family and eventually multifamily ground up development projects. When I realized about the opportunities that existed in the US, particularly value add, where you're not doing ground up development projects, you're buying an already built apartment building, you're doing some small renovation to the building, forced appreciation appreciating it, selling it in 3 to 5 years, giving great returns back to your investors. But because of high rental yields that exist in the US, you're also able to pay your investors cash flow distributions, something that is non-existent here in Canada, and also non-existent when it comes to ground up development in most cases. So when I realized that opportunity that existed in the US, I'm like, hey, I have a great investor base already, people who've made lots of money with me over the years, millions of dollars over the years in single family and multifamily. I'm just going to introduce them to a new property type, to a new business model, and it's going to be very easy to convert. And I was in for for somewhat of an awakening, realizing that it's not going to be as easy, because now people are dealing with cross-border tax issues, dealing with the IRS, dealing with SEC and many other issues. So the conversion was not there. And I realized that, hey, I got to start and create a new database, a new community of investors to come on board and invest with me. And, I wasn't really part of any special groups or clubs, or I wasn't a lot of people who get involved in real estate private equity. They leverage a certain community that they're part of. Maybe they're physicians, and they bring all their physician friends and associates on, or they're engineers, or they work for Facebook. So they have this community that they can leverage against. When I try to leverage the community I had, I didn't get as positive responses as I wanted, so I had to build that community. And the approach I took was more on the educational marketing approach. So marketing with an educational component to it is creating a lot of content when it comes to passively investing in real estate, when it comes to multifamily, and also with our niche, or niche, however you like to pronounce it, with Canadian investors that having the ability to invest in the US. So, being everywhere, really, having our own YouTube show, being very active on LinkedIn, which is a platform that I love, because some of the stats that I look at, only 1% of LinkedIn users regularly post. So you get to stand out a lot easier than other platforms like Instagram or Facebook, where people much more regularly post. So creating a lot of content is difficult to kind of explain it to, particularly my mom. When I talk to her in business, I'm like, hey, we're doing all this work, we're creating all this content. She's like, okay, how much you're making from it? Like, how much you're earning from the content? Like, oh, we're not making it. It's not monetized. It's just to build a brand. It's just to build the awareness. So that's the approach we've taken to build our community, to create a lot of content on the educational side. We have meetup groups across Canada as well, and a lot of other live events, alongside our YouTube show and other content we create. So that's the approach we've taken.
I love that, August, and bravo to you for the community that you created from scratch. So that's really, really impressive. I'm curious, when did you start building that community? And maybe kind of talk about that, and because it's something that I might actually consider doing as well. This podcast is new for me, and people like yourself have inspired me to create content. And so I'm trying to figure out what direction I should go with all this.
Absolutely. I mean, podcast is a great base to start to answer your question, and then dive more deep into it. So my business really started from a need. When I realized about the returns that existed in the US, right away it was, hey, I want to learn more about this business, but there wasn't a lot of content out there. When I researched Canadians investing in the US, or this idea of raising capital in Canada and the US, there wasn't a lot of content out there. So one of the motivations was, hey, if there isn't a lot of content, let's create that content. I spoke to well over 30 securities attorneys across Canada and the US, learning about Canadians being able to invest in the US. Cross-border accountants, had many conversations. So it was an educational course that I put myself through. And I'm like, hey, you know what? All this knowledge I've gained, I want to now give this knowledge back to our community, and build ourselves as the thought leaders in the space. So, and also another great thing about having a podcast show like you have created is the guests you bring on. It's like a mini program, the mini course that you're on with them as they explain their niche to you. So that's another great part. As a guest that we bring on, we learn so much from our guests, and we learn also about their perspective, their predictions about the market, what's going to be happening with the market, their wealth building strategies that I was unaware of in the past, like utilizing life insurance to make great investments, something I never even knew. I thought life insurance was, buying life insurance in case something happened to you, but then realized that people actually use it as a strategy to invest. So it's a great process, man. It's been really exciting.
Awesome. Well, I'm inspired and appreciate you sharing that with me. You mentioned a topic that I'd like to dive into, which is the future of investing in apartments and maybe even cap rates and returns and stuff like that. Because it seems to me that, at least, I don't know, from where I sit, like 80% of the people that are syndicators are, buying apartment complexes and doing their value add. And that's not what I do. I don't do apartments. I'll do like triple net properties, and we do medical office buildings and industrial properties and stuff like that. But I'm just curious, in that, competitive environment, how are you able to find deals, differentiate yourself? And what are your thoughts on, the trends in the multifamily business?
For sure, yeah. Differentiating ourselves, I mean, standing out is a lot easier for us than our U.S. counterparts. We are the only ones that offer products that provide cash flow from day one. Canadian products, investment products, because of the low cap rates that exist here, because of the low rental yields that are here, that are available, don't provide cash flow from day one. If they do, there is no appreciation. No matter what you do as far as forced appreciation, there's no natural market appreciation. But in the U.S., investments provide both of that. They provide cash flow and a natural market appreciation, and then we go and do forced appreciation to create more value for us and our investors.
Can I ask you just real quick before you keep going? But don't forget that thought where you're going with that. Yes. So is that because the Canadian apartments, the cap rates are just compressed because there's lack of inventory, or there's more demand, or just less product, or what is the reason for that?
It's a combination of reasons, and it hasn't been fully diagnosed of what the reasoning is. One is that most of Canada is unlivable land. We have a huge immigration population that immigrates to Canada. This is not interstate migration like the U.S., but people that are coming here from Asia, from other places around the world. We have 300,000 immigrants that come into Canada every year in average. Now, there's a bit of a bottleneck, so we have close to 500,000 immigrants that are going to be coming in. But most of those immigrants want to live either in Vancouver or Toronto, these two major cities, major hubs. So we have this immigration that's happening, and that right away creates demand for real estate. So the real estate market is somewhat has been stimulated by this immigration. So that's one thing. Second thing is, I have this conversation all the time with brokers. I'm like, hey, you're selling a multifamily property at a 3% cap rate, 2% cap rate. Who's buying these? Why are they buying it? And most of the time the answer is people are buying it for capital preservation, somewhere to park their money. They know that the prices have increased for the last 15 years. The real estate prices have gone up 1,000% in some cases. So they're like, hey, you know what? This is a great place to park it. I'm going to be in negative cash flow. I'm just going to suck it up or put down more down payment, a lower LTV. So, but I'm going to be okay. Somebody's going to buy it, higher than what I bought it for in the past. So that's what we're seeing here. And so that's kind of the reasoning why it says. And when I compare that to the U.S., I hear from our asset managers or our partners in, for example, Arizona or other states where cap rates are being compressed, and they're complaining, oh my God, cap rates are at 4%. I'm like, well, look what happened to Vancouver. We went through the same process. Look what happened in a lot of places in Europe. This idea of having these high rental yields, this high rent to value ratios that the U.S. has, is, investors are going to gravitate to areas that show such returns, and eventually it's going to keep getting pushed down. So that's my prediction with certain markets in the U.S. The same way it's happened to California and New York. Most other markets, the same thing will happen. That the cap rates will keep getting compressed, and it's going to be harder to have those yields that you had before. So buy while the getting is good.
Sure, awesome. Can we go back to before I cut you off? Do you recall what the trajectory you were on with what you're sharing? Because I cut you off. I apologize.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. So I mean, we were discussing about, again, Canada and the U.S. and and opportunities that exist. I don't particularly recall the question.
Okay, but so let me throw a question at you, which is, how are you able to find deals in today's market, even though there's a delta between the cap rates in the U.S. and Canada, but you still have to find deals that make sense to allow you to be able to pay that. You do a monthly dividend, which is fantastic. Everybody listening, Make note of that. That's great, because I often talk to multifamily syndicators that are doing quarterly or annual dividends. So we do monthly dividends as well, and I think that's wonderful when that happens. So yeah, just curious what your strategy is for sourcing deals in today's market.
For sourcing deals, really, our business model is to partner with active operators who act as our asset managers, our boots on the ground, and then we also do our own deals as well. So we're the lead or the sole GP on the projects. But everything starts with a region. What is the region we believe in? What are the regions that show consistent job growth, population growth, income growth, rent growth? And when they have those growth, the regions that have those growth metrics and they've had it consistently for the last few years, those are the regions we want to be in. Those are the states we want to be in. And then the next step is finding the right operator, an operator that has shown consistent growth as well, that they have great relationship with their investors, that they have at least $100 million of assets under management, not transactions, but currently under management. Those are the type of operators that we partner with. And then what it allows us to do then is when we have our partners in Arizona, in Texas, in Florida, in North and South Carolina, we then cherry pick the best deals they have to offer to us. So then it creates a funnel that the best deals are coming to us, and then we can then make a decision to get on board and partner with our U.S. operators to present the deal to our investors. So that's how we currently are finding the deals and the right markets to invest in. But eventually, we also want to focus on certain markets. So we're in the West Coast. A lot of people living in the West Coast of Canada do travel to the US, but in most cases they travel to, for example, Arizona. They either got a summer home out there. So the plan is also to have the infrastructure in place in those certain states. So it's a lot more familiar for the investor. They're like, hey, I've been to Arizona already. Can go there and drive by the asset, say, hey, I own a piece of that property right there. So that's kind of the plan, is to eventually have the infrastructure in place in the regions that we believe in, and we believe that they're going to continuously grow, like Texas, like Arizona, like Florida, and North and South Carolina.
Very nice. That all makes sense. I have another kind of technical question that I'm curious what your answer would be to, which is, what is the way that you structure Canadian investment money coming into the US? One of the strategies I've seen is that the money can come in as a promissory note. Is that a strategy that you guys use as well, or is it a subscription, or is it some other form of deal structure?
So it all goes around. Obviously, compliance is a very important aspect of it, but it's also about tax efficiency. So what I can kind of start with is that for Canadians looking to invest in U.S. real estate, LLCs are the worst entity to use, because if a property is purchased as a LLC, then any kind of returns that come back to investors are seen as dividends, and now they're taxed on the US side and they're also taxed on the Canadian side. So there's double taxation where the investors are paying upwards of 70% of taxes on the gains they've made. And that's not paying taxes on 70%, that's 70% of your profits is going to taxes. So that's kind of the starting base. Also, there's a bit of a confusion because, again, it comes with content and information online. A lot of times when the information is coming online, it's about people buying a piece of property in the US. You could structure that in different ways. Somebody could buy a piece of property in the US under their own personal name, and then that is somewhat tax efficient, but then they got liability issues. We're talking about private equity. We're talking about somebody investing 100% passively. And a structure for that type of investment is, it gets somewhat complicated. So what we do is we create a Canadian fund, a single purpose vehicle, and then we create a US fund, a single purpose vehicle. The US fund owns the asset, and now the Canadian fund becomes an investor in the US fund. So the Canadian fund is just an LP in the US fund. And our US investors invest directly into the US fund. Our Canadian investors invest into the Canadian fund, which then invests into a US fund alongside the other LPs.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad I asked the question because I just got to learn something new. So thanks for getting a little technical with me. All right, August, let's pivot a little bit. One of the questions that I like to chat with people about on a more personal level is the question would be, how do you invest in yourself?
Great question, and an important question. I mean, that's one of the difficulties I had for a long time is seeking mentors and asking questions and being humble enough to want to learn. A lot of times, that was a difficulty I had. I thought I knew everything there is to know about real estate, about investing, and for me to get a mentor or go to certain conferences or go to certain summits that were held, it was like, I'm like, hey, you know, I know it all. I should be having my own summit, not going to somebody else's summit. But when I got involved in real estate private equity, particularly investing in the US, it was a humbling experience because now I had to relearn everything. And I got to understand that it is extremely important, especially if you're in business, you've been in business for a long time, to simultaneously have a mentor and a protege at the same time. It's very important to have that because you're teaching, you're educating, but you're also learning at the same time. So having the humility and investing in yourself is extremely important through other thought leaders you look up to, through mentors. And when you do find a mentor, now in most cases it's paid, but if you do find you don't have to pay for a certain mentor, cherish that, and also try to add as much value as you can to whoever it is that's giving you knowledge. Even if it's a call you have with someone for 15 minutes once every month, that's still huge, and utilize it to the best of your abilities.
Love it. I have some mentors in my life who I'm blessed to have, and 100% agree with what you're saying. The other thing I'll add that you missed is, man, you definitely invest in that beard because that is beautiful. Well done. Moving forward. So the next question is, how do you like to invest in the community?
Community again. Yeah, it goes back to, for me, like, I might not be great at finding different ways to help a community. Obviously, we in multifamily investing is it's a win-win-win. We call it 3 wins. The community is winning because we go in and upgrade the asset and make it a better place to live. We create jobs in the community that we're investing in. Also, the win for our investors because their investment is being they're making returns on their investments. So in that aspect, obviously we help the communities we invest in. But personally, how I like to do it is really grassroots, is really on that personal level, and is to provide coaching, non-monetized coaching and advice. So I'm very easily available on LinkedIn and other platforms. Somebody wants to book a call with me, I've always been more than happy to help and assist them on that one-on-one personal level.
Nice, love that. And I'll add on your website, maybe give a shout out to your website, and then talk a little bit about the tips book that you provided out there for people to download.
Yeah, exactly. We have our kind of 5 great tips to passive investing. You can download it on our website. It's kind of a great comprised compressed information that you can get about passive investing in multifamily.
Awesome. Would you mind sharing the website about that, and we'll put that in the show notes?
For sure. CPIcapital.ca. CPIcapital.ca. Perfect.
Moving forward, what would you say, how would you define the word success?
Success. So I mean, it's a relative term, right? It's a relative term, and is an ongoing, is continuously trying to be successful. I would honestly, as long as my mom is my hardest critic, as long as she believes I'm successful, then I'll feel successful. She's kind of my the bar that I have to always meet, because no matter what happens with me financially in life, or what I'm doing, or I'm buying a $90 million asset, she still calls me and expects me to go and cut her grass or do some other work around the house. I'm like, Mom, I'll send over a contract. She's like, no, I need you to come here now. And success is honestly relative. It's and you shouldn't. You're successful if you, just like the questions you asked, if you're adding value to your community, if you're adding value to others, and if you're continuously in the pursuit of gaining knowledge and educating yourself. As long as you've hit those metrics, success is either have been achieved or is very close to your grasp.
Nice. I love that. And shout out to your mom. Your son is successful. And and shout out to my mom. Hey, mom. Doing my best over here, trying to meet August's definition of success to make my mother proud as well. So high five on that.
High five.
Awesome. Well, we're going to start winding things down. Is there anything else that maybe you could share, like how other ways that people can reach out to you, and maybe anything else that anybody else you're looking to connect with?
Yeah, no, just the last kind of word of advice is frankly, is be, whatever business you're in, if it's real estate or this is a real estate show. So let's focus on real estate, and any niche aspect of real estate you're in, be a student of the game, continuously learn, because even though you think you know it all, there's also new, technology things that are coming out, and it's always great to learn from others. So have that hunger to learn, and don't lose that hunger, because the moment you've lost the hunger to learn about your industry, that's when you're going to somebody's going to pass you. So keep that in mind always.
Tried and true advice that I absolutely love. So thanks for sharing those words of wisdom. And specifically, you gave your website, but maybe just give a little bit more about how people can actually reach out to you. And I know you mentioned that if someone wants to book a time with you, they might be able to. How can they do that?
Absolutely. Find me on LinkedIn. As long as you find me on LinkedIn, August Biniaz on LinkedIn, August like the month, and Biniaz, Biniaz. I'm easily found on LinkedIn. Send me a message. Let me know you see me on this show, Real Estate Niche Show, and I'll book a 15-minute call with you, answer any questions you have about any aspects related to real estate or investing or life.
Nice. What a generous offer. All right. Well, on that note, we're going to wind things down. Thanks everybody for listening to the Real Estate Niche Show. And hopefully you're watching so you can see this incredible beard and beautiful lobby of his house. It's actually incredible up there in Canada. Hopefully one day we'll get to, are you coming to the US to any conferences or anything soon? Or what's on your agenda?
I regularly do travel to the U.S. looking at the assets that we purchase. I go and do site visits and try to go as many conferences as I can. The next few months is going to be a bit difficult, the Christmas holidays and also with flight restrictions. But the plan is eventually to live part-time in the U.S. So for sure.
Nice. Well, we're recording this in December of 2021. So this should be coming out in a few months or something like that. My people will let you know. On that note, thanks everybody. I really, really would appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button, write a review, provide us with feedback, good, bad, or different. I really, really love it and appreciate it. And August, thank you again for being here. And I look forward to staying in touch and seeing you guys do more successful deals. So on that note, I hope everybody has a incredible, powerful, fun day. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Real Estate Niche Show. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me or the show, you can follow me on Instagram at Ben Kogut and at The Real Estate Niche Show. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.